Every endgame crisis in Stellaris has a specific defensive profile, specific weapons, and specific weaknesses. If you are using the same fleet against all 4 of them, you are losing ships that you don't need to lose. In this video, I'm giving you the exact ship designs that counter each crisis. No filler, just the builds, copy them, retrofit when the crisis spawns and when. A full strategy masterclass covering spawn mechanics, engagement tactics, and everything else that I use to defeat even the 1000 times crisis is coming soon. Quick report from High Command before we dive deeper. Most of you watching aren't officially enlisted yet. If this run gives you ideas for your own games, subscribe and join our navy. Now, before we jump into designs, a quick note. These builds, they aren't theory crafting, they come from extensive testing across multiple 25 times all crisis runs, a 1000 times crisis on Grand Admiral, and even a challenge where we defeated all 4 crises with a single ship. I have spent a lot of time figuring out what actually works against each crisis and what doesn't. On top of that, our Commander Gigi has been running similar designs independently in the current patch across several 25 times all crisis games, consistently getting the same results. So what you're about to see has been proven by more than one person in more than one run. The Scourge has 0 shields, only armor and hull, and anything that is larger than a swarmling has more hull than armor. Their weapons are extremely good against the shields, but struggle against armor. They also pack strikecraft that has armor penetration and the Scourge missiles that bypass shields. So the design rules are this: you go 100% armor for defenses, since shields are useless, you gotta use a strikecraft to counter theirs, you also use energy weapons for bonus damage against armor, artillery command computer on everything to maintain the range advantage. For mechanical ships, we are going with a 50-50 split of Neutron Cruisers and Battleships. For Cruisers, we are going for Neutron launchers only, so we will skip the Kinetic Artillery. It's wasted here due to their bad damage against armor. Plasma cannons in all small slots. They do massive damage against armor. Run 3 auxiliary fire controls and artillery command computer. The extra chance to hit here is very valuable against the smaller vessels. Battleships, you go with Tachyon Lance as the X slot. For strikecrafts, you go with driller drones if you have minor artifacts, otherwise you go with the standard strikecrafts. Flak guns for point defenses. They outperform the other point defense against the Scourge missiles and strikecraft in my testings. Plasma cannon in all small slots, and Afterburner instead of auxiliary fire controls. Battleships, they are slower and only carry 1 artillery weapon, so kiting matters more than accuracy here. Now, focused Arc Emitters, they are useful against swarmlings since they have less hull than armor, but since Scourge ships larger than them have more hull than armor, Tachyon Lances deal more total damage against both layers. For bioships, we are going with a 50-50 split of Harbingers and Stingers. Harbingers with Neutron launchers and strikecraft, Stingers with Tachyon Lances and L-slot plasmas. That 5-to-1 ratio we tested in our bioship guide isn't needed here. Even split works because we are focusing everything on armor damage. Talking about the Cosmogenesis ships, you spam battle cruisers, Tachyon Lances, strikecraft, neutron launchers, and plasma on arm slots. The battle cruiser is the perfect anti-Scourge design because it carries everything that you need in one ship. If you have Zrow launchers, ignore everything above. Just spam as many Zrow launchers, cruisers, or harbingers as possible. The Zrow launcher damage is so high that specialized compositions aren't necessary. Getting more Zrow launchers always wins. Now, a quick summary about the Scourge. You go for 100% armor, 0 shields, focus on energy weapons, neutron launchers, Tachyon Lances, and plasma cannons. You must have strikecrafts to counter theirs, go for artillery command computer on everything, and just avoid kinetic artillery, shields, and missiles. The Unbidden have massive shields with hardening, some hull, and 0 armor. Their weapon, the Matter Disintegrators, shreds armor, but it is terrible against shields and has low range. They also have dimensional anchors that give all nearby ships 50% shield hardening. So the design rules are this: maximum shields, armor is a liability, kinetic weapons to shred their shields, artillery command computer to kite them. They max out at 140 sublight speed, making them become trivially slow. Bring a reactor booster if you need more power for shields. Now for mechanical ships, you go for battleships only. 1 Giga Cannon as the X slot or Ancient Saturated Artillery if you can spare the minor artifacts. Or Kinetic Artillery in the L slot. Maximum shields, artillery computer, you can run focused Arc Emitters as X slots instead, but beware, they become useless in dimensional anchor systems where the Unbidden get massively increased shield hardening. Giga Cannon works everywhere. For the bioships, spam Stingers, Giga Cannons or Ancient Saturated Artillery in the X slot, Kinetic Artillery in the L slot. Same principle, pure kinetic damage against pure shields. For the Cosmogenesis ships, you go with battle cruisers with Kinetic Artillery, Giga Cannon or Saturated Artillery, Strikecraft and Gauss Cannon on M slots. Everything kinetic, everything that deals damage to shields. If you have psionic components, Zroll launchers are still good, but you need kinetic support. Psionic bombers are more useful than the Zroll launchers because they have a slightly higher shield penetration, so pairing them with the focused Arc Emitters is a very good combo. So a quick summary for the Unbidden, you go with maximum shields, minimal armor, weapons you go for kinetic like Giga Cannon, Kinetic Artillery, Gauss Cannons. For the computer, you run artillery, hide them, they are extremely slow, and you try to not use focused Arc Emitters in anchor systems. The Contingency, on the other hand, has balanced defenses, but overall much less hull than armor and shields. Their hardening is only 16% armor and 16% shields across all ships. Their AI cores have higher hardening, but it only applies to themselves, not fleet-wide like the Unbidden's dimensional anchor. The low hardening is the key. At only 16%, focused Arc Emitters are devastating. The bypass cuts through both layers without caring that much about the balance between them. From my experience, focused Arc Emitters are extremely good, especially against high-level Crises, since the Crises have a much higher armor and shield modifiers. Gig's recent tests also confirm this. So your design rules are focused Arc Emitter as the primary damage, maximum shields because the contingency weapons are mainly energy-based, and artillery combat computer to maintain the range. For mechanical ships, you go with carrier battleships, focused Arc Emitter as X slots, Strikecraft, missiles in M and S slots, as they are your only long-range bypass alternatives to pair with the focused Arc Emitter. Flak 4-point defense, auxiliary fire controls or shield capacitors in the A slots, your preference. Keep in mind that the auxiliary fire controls are not that useful for missiles, but they help the focused Arc Emitter a lot. For bioships, you go with Stingers, just grab as many focused Arc Emitters in the X slots, Kinetic Artillery plus lasers in the L slot. It is not the main damage source, but is going to be useful against the AI cores and starbases since they have higher hardening due to the amount of slots that they have. For Cosmogenesis ships, you go with battle cruisers with 2 focused Arc Emitters, Strikecraft, missiles on the M slots, and neutron launchers on the G slots. The G slots, they aren't a priority, they are just a filler. The focused Arc Emitter does the work, but the neutron launchers might help you against the AI cores due to the starbase size. If you have psionic components, on the other hand, you are setting for the game. Drone launchers on cruisers or escorts, they're gonna be massive. The Contingency's 16% hardening barely blocks the drone launchers damage. Alternatively, the focused Arc Emitter plus psionic bomber battleships or battle cruisers, both are excellent here for the same reasons, they're gonna melt everything. So for the defenses, you go with maximum shields. For weapons, you go with focused Arc Emitters primarily, missiles and Strikecraft for the support. For the computer, you go with artillery. Why focused Arc Emitter? Because only 60% hardening, bypass is barely resisted. Now Cetana is a completely different fight. Her flagship, the Colossus, has massive hull, armor, shields, and extremely high regeneration. Her titanic weapons deal area of effect damage. She is by far the hardest Crisis in the game. 2 critical weaknesses to exploit. First, you just need to destroy her flagship, which has 100% armor hardening but 0 shield hardening. That means weapons that bypass shields are far more effective than the ones that bypass armor. Second, her flagship is enormous, meaning weapons with ship-size damage multiplier deal gigantic bonus damage against her. However, neutron launchers are not the optimal decision here. They are actually bad because they hit shields at 50% damage and give her a third layer to regenerate. Instead, we use torpedoes. Torpedoes bypass shields completely and deal size-based damage to armor and hull, the perfect weapon against the Cetana. Bring a single disruptor in one small slot. Normally disruptors are weak, but their new regeneration debuff mechanic is specifically valuable here. Cetana's flagship has extremely high regen and any reduction will help a lot. So for mechanical ships you go with Torpedo Cruisers, 3 torpedoes, 5 missiles in the S slots for synergy and 1 disruptor in the remaining S slot for the regen debuff. Why cruisers over frigates? In 4.3, cruisers bring 0.15 torpedoes per point of naval capacity versus frigates at 0.125. Cruisers are also less vulnerable to Cetana's AoE damage because they are tankier. Frigates are strictly worse for this fight now. For bioships, go with maulers. Their mandibles function like torpedoes, they bypass shields and deal size-based damage. The difference is that they are kinetic instead of explosive, which matters for repeatables. For the small slots, you go with 1 autocannon and 1 disruptor for the regen debuff. Cosmogenesis ships, you go with the Riddle escorts. They bring 0.3 torpedoes per naval capacity, double the efficiency of cruisers. Flak for defense, missiles, and 1 disruptor in the small slots. If you have psionic components, the Zro launcher Harbingers with psionic bombers is great. But if you're not running bioships, you can go for the mechanical Zro launcher cruisers. Zro damage is high enough to work even with only 50% shield bypass. Also, psionic bombers are extremely good. They deal multiplicative damage just like torpedoes and they will melt the Cetana. So a quick summary: for the defenses, you run maximum shields. Cetana's main damage comes from energy weapons. For weapons, you focus completely on torpedoes. They're pretty much gonna carry the entire fight. You go with missiles for the support and you always bring some disruptors for the regen debuff. The ship class, you go for cruisers for the mechanicals, Mauler for the bioships, Riddle escort if you have Cosmogenesis. For the combat computer, you go with the siege, which will cause your ships to just get in range and obliterate Cetana straight away with the torpedoes. Why torpedoes? Because they bypass shields, they deal size damage multiplier, they take advantage of Cetana's 0% shield hardening. So things to avoid are neutron launchers and any weapon that is terrible against the shields, because ideally you want to just destroy her armor and then move on to hull, completely ignoring shields. So that's the exact ship designs you need against every endgame crisis in Stellaris commanders. A Scourge, you go for energy and armor. Unbidden, it is kinetic and shields. Contingency, it is bypass with the focus Arc Emitters and shields. Cetana, you just focus on torpedoes and shields. For Crises, 4 loadouts, retrofit when they spawn, don't try to fight all 4 with the same fleet. A full strategy guide covering the spawn mechanics, engagement tracks, fleet positioning, and everything beyond the ship design is coming soon. So if this guide helped you out, leave a like, because it also helps me out a lot. And as always, commanders, I will see you guys next time.